Welcome back to SATAC's Year 12 Information Series, where we'll give you the key things you need to know when applying to TAFE SA and university. We hope this series is helpful, but as always, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact us by phone, email, or in person, and we'll make sure that you get the help you need. This is the second of 3 videos created for SACE and NTCET students. If you haven't yet checked out video 1, I recommend you go back and catch up on what we looked at there before continuing on. In this video, we're going to be learning all about admission pathways, especially in undergraduate applications. We are then going to walk through key aspects of the application process, including key dates and fees. To start, let's quickly cover 2 key terms that you need to know. Those 2 terms are eligibility and competitiveness. To be eligible for a course, a person needs to meet the selection criteria for that course, including any prerequisite subjects. Many things can be selection criteria, such as a complete qualification, like your Year 12, completion of subjects like biology or chemistry, or submission of the application on time. To be competitive, a person must have some kind of qualification with a rank that is considered high enough to be in the top X number of applicants, and X equals the number of places. So if there are 200 places for a course, your rank would need to be in the top 200 of applicants for that course. Your rank comes from a score achieved in a qualification, for example, an ATAR in Year 12 or a GPA at university. What is considered competitive can be very different from one course to another and is largely based on the cohort that you are competing against. Courses that are very popular and have very high numbers of applications are more competitive than those that have less applicants. Now, not all courses are competitive, with some having guaranteed entry scores, for example, or simply requiring that a qualification is complete. In cases where there is no qualification required for entry, but a course is still popular and competitive, competitiveness can be based on the time of your application. This is common with some very popular TAFE SA courses. To be offered a place in a course, you must be both eligible and competitive. Most undergraduate courses will have a variety of different admission pathways. Let's have a really quick look at what they are, remembering that different courses can have very different options and requirements. You'll need to check each course in Course Search and on the institution websites to get the details of what pathways are relevant to you. The first and most obvious pathway for you to consider is the Year 12 admission pathway. To be eligible to use your Year 12 results for entry into university courses, you'll need a completed Year 12 qualification. That means you've completed the requirements of the SACE or the NTCET. Then you'll need a selection rank. This comes from your ATAR or your Year 12 selection rank. This is what allows you to be considered alongside applicants who have the same qualification as you do. There is also a higher education admission pathway. Once a person has studied at least 1 semester full-time, they can use their higher education results, or their grade point average, to compete. This is really common as some people change their mind once they get to uni, and that's totally okay. There is also a VET admission pathway. To use this one, you'll need to have a completed VET qualification. Depending on the university and the course you're applying for, you might need a Certificate 3 or higher, or a Certificate 4 or higher, so always check carefully. And then there are some alternative admission pathways. For lots of courses, you can do things like admission tests, such as the STAT, which is the Skills for Tertiary Admissions test. So if none of the other admission pathways that you were planning on worked out for you for whatever reason, there might be these alternative options that you can consider. Let's quickly have another look at an example of someone and how pathways might relate to their application. This is Jasmine. She finished the SACE last year and has enrolled in university. After 1 semester, she's decided that she wants to change to a different course. Now Jasmine is competing for her new preference in the following pathways. Year 12 pathway, using her Year 12 results from last year. Now you can use your Year 12 results in this pathway for 2 years. After that time, you compete in a different group, but you can still use them in some cases. As always though, you'll need to check the rules for the courses you've chosen and your preferences. She can also compete in the VET pathway using her Certificate 3 in Early Childhood Education and Care, which she completed as recognised studies as part of her SACE. That one semester at university lets her compete on the higher education pathway with her GPA. And lastly, as Jasmine has selected a health course, she can also compete on the remote and Indigenous pathways, being an Indigenous Australian woman living in the Northern Territory. As we can see, Jasmine is competing in a few pathways against slightly different cohorts. But it's important to remember that like competes with like. Jasmine's Year 12 results are only competing against other Year 12 applicants. Likewise, her university studies are only competing against other people with university studies. Jasmine is competing in all of these pathways, but she can only get an offer based on one of them. To maximise your competitiveness, it's in your interest to give us everything that you could use to compete in all possible pathways for the preferences that you have selected. It's time to cover the application process in a bit more detail. Last episode, we followed Leo's journey, so we have an idea of the basic steps along the way. Here, we're going to cover some specific tips and pieces of information that you need. First things first, when you're registering for My SATAC, which is our application portal, use your personal email address, not a school email address. Unfortunately, you can't update your email address in My SATAC after you've registered, and you'll lose access to your school email soon after you finish Year 12. So if you use a school email address, we might be sending you really important emails that you no longer have access to. Then, make sure you have your USI handy if you've got one. If you're not sure whether you have one, you can check on usi.gov.au. You'll also need your SACE registration number. This is very important because if you don't add the correct details of your Year 12 studies, we can't correctly identify you as a current Year 12 applicant and charge you the lower application processing fee. We also can't find your results, nor can we attach them to your application and assess it. When filling out your application, try to tell us everything that is relevant about your previous studies. If you did recognised studies, you should fill that out in the relevant section, whether it's a vet certificate or higher education subjects, as you might be able to compete in an extra pathway. And remember, you'll need to supply all the relevant documents as quickly as possible. Okay, it's time to talk preferences. Preferences are the courses you apply for in your SATAC application. You can have up to 6 preferences on an undergraduate application and up to 3 on a TAFE SA application. One of the most important things to remember about your preferences is that you should list them in order of, preference. You only get one offer at a time. Once you get one, it will stop you competing for anything lower on your list. You tell us what you want to do, in the order that you want to do it, and we'll work out the rest. Now, you can change your preferences after you've submitted your application, even after you've received your Year 12 results. So if things change, you have that flexibility. No one expects you to make a final decision right here and right now, so you can add, delete, and reorder your preferences, as long as the courses haven't closed. Usually, that's around very early January change of preference deadline date, depending on the year. SATAC processes each of your preferences separately, and you will always receive an offer to the highest preference for which you are eligible and sufficiently competitive. We'll start at the top with your first preference, and if you don't get an offer to your first preference, we'll keep working our way down the list. If you receive an offer for a TAFE SA course, you'll need to respond to that offer inside your My SATAC account. There will almost always be a deadline to respond to TAFE SA offers, so check your offer letter very carefully and make sure you don't miss out. If you receive an offer to an undergraduate course, you will typically have 3 responses to choose from: accept, reject, or defer. Undergraduate offers will be accepted on your behalf at first so that you don't miss out, but if you need to change that response, you can do that easily in your My SATAC application. If you get a first preference offer, the default response is, "I accept this offer and do not wish to be considered for any other preferences." We do this because your first preference, by virtue of being your first preference, is assumed to be the course you most wanted to get into. So if you get an offer to that, we won't keep working our way down the list to see if we can get offers for any lower preferences. However, if the offer you receive is to a lower preference, then the default response is, "I accept this offer, but still wish to be considered for my higher preferences." But you can only have one active offer at a time. If you receive a new offer, it replaces or supersedes your old one. At no point can you have multiple active offers and then pick and choose which one you want. So when choosing your offer response, If you're wanting to be considered for your higher preferences, make sure you understand that if you do get that higher preference offer, the current one that you have will be superseded. If after having received an offer, all you want to do is accept it and enroll, then that's all you need to do. The enrolment instructions will be sent to you by the institution, and there may be an enrolment deadline too. If there is one and you miss it, your offer lapses, which means the course that you worked really, really hard to get into and then did get into is taken away and offered to someone else. So make sure you meet your deadlines. Speaking of deadlines, all key dates are on our website. There are a few dates that are critical for you to understand, so please familiarise yourself with them. We will also send out reminders, but the onus is on you to meet them. These dates vary each year, so I'm going to give you general timelines. Ensure you are checking the SATAC website for the dates that are relevant for the cycle year that you are applying for. We've already talked about course closing dates. Those are in Course Search for each individual course. Keep in mind that these dates can be very different for different courses, even if they start at the same time. Be aware that some courses, such as Creative Arts in Drama and Health, close earlier than others. Some key dates that you really need to keep aware of are cycle opening date, which is the first Monday in August. If you're hoping for a place in a competitive TAFE SA course, you will need to have your MySATAC account all created before this date and be ready to go at 9 a.m. if you want to get in early enough. The fee increase date for undergraduate, which is usually around late September each year. The equal consideration deadline is in late November or early December, depending on the year. You must have applied and paid your fees by this date to be given equal consideration. Now, equal consideration is simply the principle that all applicants who have the same selection rank and are applying on the basis of like qualifications will be treated equally in the selection process for each course, providing that they apply by the relevant dates, pay the relevant SATAC fees, and follow the requirements of the application. The new year will bring the change of preference deadline. If you make changes to your preferences in an undergraduate application between the change of preference deadline and the mid-January offer round, we cannot guarantee you equal consideration. There is also a small number of courses that will not allow any changes to those preferences after the change of preference deadline at all, for the entire cycle. That means from that date in early January, you cannot move that preference up in your preference list, or you could be excluded entirely from consideration. These are very competitive courses, usually in health, such as clinical sciences, midwifery, nursing, and allied health. You can pick them because they have very strong messages in your application and in Course Search around closing dates. Look for messages that indicate that a course has closed or is closing with hard deadlines. Notices on the preference page of your application in red text will also warn you about courses that have hard deadlines once this date has passed. If you see red text in the preferences section of your application, take your time and read all of the warnings thoroughly before you act. If you have a preference to a competitive health course and you're thinking about moving any of your preferences that might accidentally shuffle this one, please give us a call at SATAC. We'll be able to tell you whether you would be disadvantaged by doing this. If you have not selected any of those kinds of courses, then the normal rules apply. Offer rounds begin in October, but the vast majority of offers come out in the mid-January offer round. That includes all the places for people competing with their Year 12 qualifications. We hold on to those Year 12 places until all of your results are finalised, so please don't worry if you hear about little offer rounds from October. We continue to have offer rounds throughout the year. Offers are made for Semester 1 until March and for Semester 2 until August. The last thing to cover is fees. There is a fee associated with an undergraduate application, but the good news is that this is lower for you as a school leaver. But remember, you will need to supply your SACE ID number when you apply to get that lower fee. Early bird pricing ends in late September, so be sure to submit and pay before then if you don't want to pay the higher standard fee. In even better news, TAFE SA applications are entirely free, and there's nothing stopping you from applying for both undergraduate and TAFE SA courses if that suits your needs. Well, that's it for this video. Thank you for joining us. In the third and final video, we're going to be giving you some insight into Year 12 ranks and scores. So we'll cover aggregate scores, ATARs, and Year 12 selection ranks. We'll see you then.